صلوات. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والليل إذا يغشى والنهار إذا تجلى وما خلق الذكر والأنثى إن سعيكم لشتى فأما من أعطى واتقى وصدق بالحسنى فسنيسره لليسرى وأما من بخل واستغنى وكذب بالحسنى فسنيسره للعسرى وما يغني عنه ماله إذا تردى إن علينا للهدى وإن لنا للآخرة والأولى فأنذرتكم نارا تلظى لا يصلاها إلا الأشقى الذي كذب وتولى وسيجنبها الأتقى الذي يؤتي ماله يتزكى وما لأحد عنده من نعمة تجزى إلا ابتغاء وجه ربه الأعلى ولسوف يرضى. صدق الله العلي العظيم.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم إني أسألك وأتوجه إليك بنبيك نبي الرحمة محمد صلى الله عليه وآله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. يا أبا القاسم يا رسول الله يا إمام الرحمة يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله. يا أبا الحسن يا أمير المؤمنين يا علي بن أبي طالب يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله. يا فاطمة الزهراء يا بنت محمد يا قرة عين الرسول يا سيدتنا ومولاتنا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيهة عند الله اشفعي لنا عند الله. يا أبا محمد يا حسن بن علي أيها المجتبى يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا أبا عبد الله يا حسين بن علي أيها الشهيد يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا أبا الحسن يا علي بن الحسين يا زين العابدين يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا أبا جعفر يا محمد بن علي أيها الباقر يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا أبا عبد الله يا جعفر بن محمد أيها الصادق يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا أبا الحسن يا موسى بن جعفر أيها الكاظم يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا أبا الحسن يا علي بن موسى أيها الرضا يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا أبا جعفر يا محمد بن علي أيها التقي الجواد يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا أبا الحسن يا علي بن محمد أيها الهادي النقي يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا أبا محمد يا حسن بن علي أيها الزكي العسكري يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا وصي الحسن والخلف الحجة أيها القائم المنتظر المهدي يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله. Please ask your hajat. And Allah, for the sake of these pure names, for all of those facing distress, all of those Muslimin, all of our mu'mineen across this world who are facing distress, especially in Pakistan where there is a flood, as well as all of the other areas facing distress currently, Iraq, Syria, anywhere else. Ya Allah, please give them all relief. Please hasten the reappearance of the Imam of our time. Ameen Rabbal Alameen. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا سادتي وموالي إني توجهت بكم أئمتي وعدتي ليوم فقري وحاجتي إلى الله وتوسلت بكم إلى الله واستشفعت بكم إلى الله فاشفعوا لي عند الله واستنقذوني من ذنوبي عند الله فإنكم وسيلتي إلى الله وبحبكم وبقربكم أرجو نجاة من الله فكونوا عند الله رجائي. يا سادتي يا أولياء الله صلى الله عليهم أجمعين ولعن الله أعداء الله ظالميهم من الأولين والآخرين. آمين يا رب العالمين. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
बर मोहम्मद वाले मोहम्मद सलावत. ये थे ब्रदर अली रज़ा जिन्होंने बेहतरीन दुआए तवस्सुल की तलावत से इस मजलिस अज़ा का आगाज़ किया है. अब मैं दरख्वास्त गुज़ार हूँ جناب اقبال گانجی صاحب سے کہ وہ آئیں اور مولا کی بارگاہ میں سلام پیش کریں. ایک صلوات پڑھی اعلیٰ محمد و آل محمد. دیگر نعرے صلوات.
سن لو اپنی بیٹی کے آخری بیاں بابا، سن لو اپنی بیٹی کے آخری بیاں بابا، بند ہونے والی ہے اب میری زبان بابا، قید کے اندھیروں میں گھٹ رہا ہے دم میرا، قید کے اندھیروں میں گھٹ رہا ہے دم میرا، اب سہے نہیں جاتی مجھ سے سختیاں بابا، اب سہے نہیں جاتی مجھ سے سختیاں بابا، جب میرا جوان بھیا ایڑیا رگڑتا تھا، جب میرا جوان بھیا ایڑیا رگڑتا تھا، چبھ رہی تھی میرے بھی دل میں برچیاں بابا، چبھ رہی تھی میرے بھی دل میں برچیاں بابا، جب گلے لگایا تھا تم نے ہم کو مقتل میں، جب گلے لگایا تھا تم نے ہم کو مقتل میں، آج تک رلاتا ہے ہائے وہ سما بابا، کان ہو گئے زخمی گال ہو گئے نیلے، کان ہو گئے زخمی گال ہو گئے نیلے، ظالموں نے یوں چھینی میرے بالیاں بابا، ظالموں نے یوں چھینی میری بالیاں بابا، یہ خبر نہیں مجھ کو کب جلا میرا دامن، یہ خبر نہیں مجھ کو کب جلا میرا دامن، دور تک تھا آنکھوں کے سامنے دھواں بابا، دور تک تھا آنکھوں کے سامنے دھواں بابا آخری تمنا تھی بس وطن کو جانے کی آخری تمنا تھی بس وطن کو جانے کی اب کبھی نہ جائیں گے لوٹ کر مکان بابا اب کبھی نہ جائیں گے لوٹ کر مکان بابا یہ نذیر اپنا ہے اس کو بخشوا دینا یہ نذیر اپنا ہے اس کو بخشوا دینا اس نے رو کے لکھی ہے میری داستان بابا اس نے رو کے لکھی ہے میری داستان بابا سن لو اپنی بیٹی کے آخری بیان بابا بند ہونے والی ہے اب میری زبان بابا بر محمد و آل محمد صلوات
یہ تھے جناب اقبال گانجی صاحب جنہوں نے مولا کی بارگاہ میں سلام پیش کیا. مولا آپ کی اس عبادت کو قبول فرمائے. ایک اور صلوات پڑھی علی محمد و آل محمد. کی آغوش میں وہ جام پیا ہے میں نے ماں کی آغوش میں وہ جام پیا ہے میں نے اور لب کھلے تو علی نام لیا ہے میں نے لب کھلے تو علی نام لیا ہے میں نے اور ملی کو جنبش جو میرے ہاتھوں کو اور ملی قوتِ جنبش جو میرے ہاتھوں کو گود میں ماتم شبیر کیا ہے میں نے ماں کیا ہوش میں بر محمد وآل محمد صلوات
اللہم صلی علی محمد وآل محمد.
ایک بار اور مل کے نعرے صلوات.
اللہم صلی علی محمد وآل محمد.
خلد میں سوغات یہ اہل عزا لے جائیں گے. خلد میں سوغات یہ اہل عزا لے جائیں گے. اور کربلا کی خاک تھوڑی سی اٹھا لے جائیں گے. کربلا کی خاک تھوڑی سی اٹھا لے جائیں گے. خلد میں سوغات یہ اہل عزا لے جائیں گے. اور گمراہی کا غم نہیں میدان محشر میں ہمیں. گمراہی کا غم نہیں میدان محشر میں ہم. اور مانگ کر زہرا سے جنت کا پتہ لے جائیں گے. اور مانگ کر زہرا سے جنت کا پتہ لے جائیں گے. اور ہم قیامت میں کریں گے نظر اشکوں کے گوہر. ہم قیامت میں کریں گے نظر اشکوں کے گوہر. اور جو اسے بدعت سمجھتے ہیں وہ کیا لے جائیں گے. خلد میں سوغات یہ اہل عذاب
لے جائیں گے.
اور جو بھی ماتم کرنے آئے ہیں یہاں شبیر. اور جو بھی ماتم کرنے آئے ہیں یہاں شبیر. اور احمد و زہرا و حیدر کی دعا لے جائیں گے. خلد میں سوغات یہ اہل عزا لے جائیں گے. اور آخرت کے راستے کا ہم کو کوئی ڈر نہیں. آخرت کے راستے کا ہم کو کوئی ڈر نہیں. اور تھام کر ہاتھوں کو خود مشکل کشا لے جائیں گے. اور ہاتھ کر تھام کر ہاتھوں کو خود مشکل کشا لے جائیں گے. اور ماتم شبیر سے دنیا کو دیں گے شکست، ماتم شبیر سے دنیا کو دے دیں گے شکست، اور ہم جہاں جائیں گے عزم کربلا لے جائیں گے، اور چھوڑ قبر میں خاک شفا، ہر درد و غم کا ہے علاج، قبر میں خاک شفا، ہر درد و غم کا ہے، اور چھوڑ دیں گے ہر دوائیں، یہ دوا لے جائیں گے، خلد میں سوغات یہ اہل عزا لے جائیں گے۔ اور کیا خبر تھی حر کی قسمت اس قدر بیدار ہے، کیا خبر تھی حر کی قسمت اس قدر بیدار، اور مر کے رومال جناب سیدہ لے جائیں گے، اور مر کے رومال جناب سیدہ لے جائیں گے، خلد میں سوغات یہ اہل عزا لے جائیں گے، اور کانپ اٹھے گا لاشے عباس دریا پر ضرور، اور چھین کر ظالم جو زینب سے ردا لے جائیں گے، خلد میں سوغات یہ اہل عزا لے جائیں، اور کربلا کی خاک تھوڑی سی اٹھا لے جائیں گے، خلد میں سوغات یہ۔ سورہ فاتحہ۔ ایک اور صلوات پڑھی علی محمد وآل محمد۔
اللہم صلی علی محمد وآل محمد۔
جب گل ہوا چراغ حرم قید شام میں، جب گل ہوا چراغ حرم قید شام میں، یعنی سکینہ مر گئی یاد امام، اور دیکھے ستم یزید کے دربار عام، شہ کے سلام کو گئے دارالسلام، شہ کے سلام کو گئے دارالسلام، اور دنیا میں داد رس نہ ملا داد خواہ، جا کے نشان تماچوں کے دکھلائے شاہ، جا کے نشان تماچوں کے دکھلائے شاہ، اور غل پڑ گیا حسین کی عاشق نے کی قضا، بانوں نے نبض دیکھی تو پایا نہ دمز، اور چلائی صدقے جاؤں مجھے دے گئے بغا، اپنی کہی نہ میری سنی ہائے کیا، اپنی کہی نہ میرے سنی ہائے کیا کی اصغر کو کچھ پیام بھی میں نے دیا نہیں تم چل بسی اور اماں نے رخصت کیا نہیں تم چل بسی اور اماں نے رخصت کیا نہیں تم چل بسی اور اماں نے رخصت نہیں اصغر کی بھولی باتیں سناؤ نثار اکبر کا ذکر کر کے رلاؤ نثار حسینی کا نیلما کو دکھاؤ نثار او بابا کو جا کے در پہ بلاؤ نثار بابا کو جا کے در پہ بلاؤ نثار اور ماتم کے غلغلے ہیں نہ رونے کے جوش بی بی جو اب خاموش ہیں تو سب خاموش بی بی جو اب خاموش ہیں تو سب خاموش اور منہ ڈھانپنے کا وقت ہے پچھلا پہر ہو بابا کو تیرے روتی ہوں اٹھ ساتھ دے میرے او کرتے سے منہ کو ڈھانپ کے پہلو میں بیٹھ اماں کی بیٹی اماں کو آواز تو سن اماں کی بیٹی اماں کو آواز تو سن اور ماتم سرا یہ گھر تھا تیرے بہن کرنے زندان سونا ہو گیا بی بی کے مرنے سے زندان سونا ہو گیا بی بی کے اور یہاں کس کے پاس رہتے شہ کربلا بی بی کے ناز اٹھانے کی خاطر چچا اور نادار ماں ہے پانی نہیں اور غذا پر اب کفن کے واسطے ہے ردان پر اب کفن کے واسطے ہے ردان اور اماں کے پاس رہنے کی ایزا اٹھا بی بی تماچے کھا چکی گردن بندھا بی بی تماچے کھا چکے گردن بندھا اور اماں کی پیاری بابا کی پیاری زبان کو کھو شربت میں لائی میری پیاری دہاں کو اور ماں رو رہی ہے دیدہ گوہر فشاں کو مہماں بندے گلے سے نہ جاری اس ماں کو مہماں بندے گلے سے نہ جاری اس ماں کو اور دادی کڑیں گی بی بی کی زلفیں سوار لو اٹھو یہ پھٹا ہوا کرتا اتار لو اٹھو یہ پھٹا ہوا کرتا اتار دو جب گل ہوا چراغے بر محمد والے محمد صلوات اس سے پہلے کہ میں مولانا رضوان رضوی سے درخواست کروں کہ اب وہ آج کی مجلس اعزاز میں افروز ممبر ہوں. Let us recognize the sponsors for tonight's majlis. They are Mr. Brother Muslim and Mrs. Noor Zahra Hassan, Dr. Riaz and Mrs. Anisha Hassan, Brother Irfan and Mrs. or Sister Zorain Ganji, Dr. Zain and Sister Amna Hassan. ان کے مرحومین کے لیے، آپ سب کے مرحومین کے لیے، اور جن کا کوئی پڑھنے والا نہیں ہے، ایک سورہ فاتحہ. آج کے جو اسپانسرز ہیں، اللہ تعالیٰ ان کی توفیقات میں اضافہ فرمائے، اور جو مرحومین ہیں اللہ تعالیٰ ان کے درجات بلند کرے. ایک صلوات پڑھی علی محمد و آل محمد. With that, for tonight's English lecture, I request our very own Moulana Rizwan Rizvi. Please welcome him. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Ya Ali.
رحم اللہ من قرأ سورة الفاتحہ. بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم. رب العالمین الرحمن الرحیم مالک یوم الدین ایاک نعبد و ایاک نستعین اهدنا الصراط المستقیم صراط الذین انعمت علیہم غیر المغضوب علیہم ولا الضالین. اعوذ باللہ من الشیطان الرجیم. بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم. الحمد لله الذي قصرت عن رؤيته أبصار الناظرين وعجزت عن نعته أوهام الواصفين. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين خاتم النبيين أبي القاسم محمد وأهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. أما بعد فقد قال الله تبارك وتعالى وقوله الحق وهو أصدق القائلين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل إنما أعظكم بواحدة أن تقوموا لله مثنى وفرادا ثم تتفكروا. صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوات بيجي محمد. Dear brothers and sisters in Iman, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. The night of 10th of Safar, which is associated with the Shahadat of the daughter of Sayyid al-Shuhada, Imam Husayn ibn Ali alayhi salatu wassalam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala. There are many narrations as far as the maqtal is concerned, which talk about the existence of the daughters of Imam Hussein that were present in Karbala. And that's why you find discrepancy in reference to the name of the little girl who died in the prison in the Zindan of Sham. In the Arab world, normally they refer to her as Ruqayya, and in our culture, normally the name is used as Sakina. And of course, this must have been the title of the girl and the daughter of Imam Husayn, as Imam had named all her daughters to be Fatima. So the name Sakina comes from the root of Sukun, the one who used to provide comfort. And of course, that is one of the reasons people name their children, especially daughters, to be Sakina, because daughters have that ability to provide that Sukun, not necessarily provided by the sons sometimes. And therefore, that could be the reason why the name Sakina is mentioned. But definitely, there was a daughter who passed away in the Zindan, whether you name her to be Ruqayya or Sakina. And it was, in fact, a daughter of Sayyidu Shuhada. Now, you do find other accounts as well, which of course I'm only mentioning for the sake of knowledge, that speak and that narrate the fact that a girl by the name Sakina came back to Medina, gave a khutbah, lived until year 120 after Hijrah, and that's when she passed away. This could be another daughter of Imam Husayn, not necessarily Sakina, because the other daughters of Imam Husayn, who were also named Fatima, Fatima Kubra and Fatima Sughra, they were also daughters of Imam Husayn who, of course, did not attain Shahadat, or did not die in the events or the aftermaths of Karbala. They survived and they came back to Medina and they lived for a long, long time. So with this discussion, I didn't want to create any misunderstanding, but rather just for the sake of information, that when you do hear in or from the books, when you do read about these subjects, there's no denial of a daughter being, martyred or dying in the Zindan. But as far as the name is concerned, you might find that there are differences as far as the riwayat is concerned. But nonetheless, 10th of Safar is associated with her wafat, her shahadat. And this is where, after this, the qafla had departed, for example, the Zindan, and they left Balad al-Sham, and then they came to Medina. While some riwayat also discuss that the qafla stayed for an entire year in the Zindan, and then they were released after an entire year in captivity. Now this is where both stories are there, but the more authentic, which seems more authentic, is the one which I mentioned first, that they came back the very first year to Karbala on the day of Chihlum, or on about the day of Chihlum. So if someone says, how can they be back in 10 days? Okay, maybe not right in 10 days, maybe 12 or 13 days they were in Karbala, but they only stayed there until the first of the Chihlum. It's not like they stayed in Karbala, or rather in Sham, for an entire year. The reason is because how are you going to justify the shahadat of Bibi Zainab in the 62nd year after Hijrah? That if they stayed in Sham for an entire year, then that which means the Karbala took place in 61st year after Hijrah. They stayed for an entire year, meaning they were there until the next Arba'een, because that's when they came back to Karbala. And then you have the shahadat of Bibi Zainab in 62 after Hijrah. But while we know that Bibi Zainab came back to Medina, and then her shahadat takes place, either that she left back for Sham, or she went to, for example, other place, or some riwayat mentioned that she died in Medina as well. That is another story. But for her to come back and then leave, you can't just say, well, she never came back, that she stayed in Sham and then she died in Sham. There's always this mention of her coming back to Medina, going to the grave of Bibi Sayyidah, going to the grave of her grandfather, doing all those bain on the graves, and then staying for time being with Hazrat Abdullah. We all read these. This is something which is a common knowledge. So her coming back to Medina is musallam. So if she's coming back to Medina the second year after events of Karbala, then it contradicts with Ahl Haram staying in captivity for an entire year. But again, nobody's saying this is right and that is wrong, or that is right and this is wrong. Either one could be taken, as far as there isn't anything else which is contradictory to the facts of history. So again, this is just to mention the variety of facts that exist. You say, well, why there's so much discrepancy? Important to know that, it's a time when you're not living in social media, where things that are said right here could be seen other places and documented, and their copies could be made and spread and whatnot. And even with that, you find there's a lot of what? Misunderstandings. Someone said something, and the other one heard it differently. They mistook it. They went and they explained it to someone else. It was out of context. So when that's possible in this advanced digital age, just imagine that is a common thing that could have happened back then as well. And therefore, those who were documenting this, a lot of things were missed out. Another thing which I wanted to mention, the 7th of Safar, which just passed a couple of days ago, marks the Wiladat of 7th Imam, Imam Musa Kazim alayhi salatu wassalam. Allahumma salli. And there's a mention of the Shahadat of Imam Hasan Mushtaba alayhi salatu wassalam, which in some places it is commemorated. In fact, in Iraq, it is commemorated. In Iraq, they commemorate the Shahadat of 2nd Imam on 7th of Safar. So out of all the places, which is the place of marji'iyyat, this is happening. The reason Maraji don't oppose it is because there's nothing harm. There's no harm in it. You can have as many days of Shahadat as possible if you want. But to neglect the Wiladat of our 7th Imam, is it not possible for Imam to be born in Ayyam Azah? It's quite possible. Wiladat of an Imam taking place in month of Muharram and Safar is possible. So Imam did, his Wiladat was on the 7th day of Safar. The first person to narrate this regarding 2nd Imam, they quote back to a book of fiqh, durus, of one of the great scholars, who in his book mentioned the Shahadat of 2nd Imam as Salakha Safar, Sin Lam Khe. And then those who took this book and rewrote it, they thought the word Salakha was actually Sabi'. So if you write Sin, Lam and Khe, you can actually make Sin, Alif, Be and Sabi' from it. Sabi' means 7th. While the Muallif was saying Salakha Safar, meaning end of Safar, this person who rewrote, made other copies of the book, wrote Sabi' Safar, 7th of Safar, and therefore the Shahadat became what? 7th of Safar. But nonetheless, this is again something which does not cause any confusion or why we do this on the wrong day or not. As many days that we get to celebrate or commemorate the Wiladat and the Shahadat of Masumeen, it only brings barakat to us. Salawat bi Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. La Muhammad. With this tamheed, the ayat that I recited is from Surah Sabah, chapter number 36, verse number 46. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this ayah says, قُلْ إِنَّمَا أَعِذُكُمْ بِوَاحِدَةٍ. Say, I give you one advice. And then he says, أَن تَقُومُوا لِلَّهِ مَثْنَى وَفُرَادًا. You rise up for Allah's sake, either in pairs or singly, and then reflect. A lot of things that are mentioned in Quran, there are purposes that you find. Sometimes Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions something. He says, you do it according to how Allah wants it to be done. But then also gives us the ability to do it according to our best abilities possible. So there are 3 specific scenarios for that. And the reason I chose it is because I want to talk about tarbiyat-e awlad, is the shahadat and the wafat of the daughter of Sayyid al-Shuhada, we look at her tarbiyat. Of course, we don't have much as far as her life is concerned, but a few words that came from her zaban, her tongue, during the masaib of Karbala, Kufa and Sham are telling the way her tarbiyat was done. That speak volumes. For example, you always hear this in the masaib, that she asked that Sahabi, Sa'ad ibn Sahal ibn Sa'ad Sa'idi, to take the heads of Shuhada ahead. That shows her insight, basirat. Why? If the people are focused on the heads, they will not focus on our bare heads. They won't look at the ladies, although hijab is not wajib on her, but she's caring for all the women who are without hijab. So look at her insight. This is the basira that is found in this 4-year-old. For example, when Janabe Zainab on the day of Ashur after Sham-e Ghariba gives her water, she said, you drink first. You're old. She said, no, first kids should drink. Then she starts going towards Maqtal. Why? My younger brother left this world in the state of thirst. So all of these things talk about the akhlaq, the ethics, morality, and her upbringing. So I thought it would be important if we look at it from Qur'anic perspective as well. So Allah says to us, do these things the best way you can. And then He gives us another option. If you can't do it the best, try your best. Do as much as you can. But don't leave it. There's no third option for you. Either you do the best job or you do best of your ability, but there's no third option to just neglect it. Neglecting is not an option. That's what it is when it comes to tarbiyat as well. Either you do the best job that there is possible, best thing that you can do for your kids, or try your best, but don't ever give up that, no, this is not my piece of cake. I cannot do this. I'm already spending hundreds of dollars, thousands of dollars towards their education. And I am bari'u zimma, someone else can. Leaving the tarbiyat of our kids in the hands of others, that is not an option. So, 3 examples that I wanted to give you, ways to inviting people toward, for example, salat. Quran tells us if you do something, either pay full dues, and if you can't pay full dues, then try your best ability. 3 examples. Number 1 is in regards to the taqwa of Allah. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu ittaqullah haqqa tuqatihi. O those who believe, fear Allah the way He deserves. Haqqa tuqat. He said, this is the best of your ability. This is the top most. And then you find another ayat in Quran in Surah Taghabun, which says, Fattaqullah mastatatum. Fear Allah according to your istita'at. Now some people might find contradiction in it. There's no contradiction. Imam says, Mastatatum is the path. Haqqa tuqate is your destination. Right? You get on the path of doing it. You continue and persevere on this path. Haqqa tuqate is the destination that you will arrive at. And even if you don't arrive at that destination, at least you are on the path of getting to that destination. So with that said, this is one example. Regarding taqwa, that either have the highest taqwa as possible, or at least get on the path of doing this taqwa. Number 2, الَّذِينَ آتَيْنَاهُمُ الْكِتَابِ يَتْلُونَهُ حَقَّ تِلَاوَتِهِ. Those to whom book has been given, they recite this book the way the book deserves to be recited. Here we need to question, how many of us can recite this book? We pay so much attention towards our kids, and this is also part of the tarbiyat, that you find this tarbiyati aspect in every Shia household. That as soon as our kids are 4 or 5 years old, we start with them what? Recitation of Quran. We find some qari, some local, someone outside, online, on Skype, here and there, to go ahead and teach them Quran. We make an effort, mashallah, we do a good job. Kids start reciting the qaida, after qaida they finish Quran, they start reciting Quran, then they finish Quran, there's this ameen. What happens after ameen? You close the Quran, هَذَا فِرَاقٌ بَيْنِي وَبَيْنَكَ. This is the firaq, as Zuhri had said this. when he was told that you've been given a mansab, a position, he was referred to as kabutar masjid, meaning what? He was always found in masjid. He was just doing ibadat. The moment he was told that you're given some sort of position, he closed the Quran and said, Haza firaqun bayni wa baynak. Yahan tak tha mera tumhara saath. And that's it. Left the Quran and then he went after the mansab that he was given. That's what happened with our kids as well. They finish Quran by the age of 9 or 10, and then Quran is closed and it's not open again. When they turn 15 or 16, they can barely read Quran. That's when Moulana, we need some online classes for our kids. He's already forgotten how to read Quran. Spend 5 years teaching them, and you spend 5 years making them forget. And now when they're 15 or 16, now you're worrying about it again. No, continue the process. Keep doing it. So that is as far as the ayat says in Surah Baqarah, الَّذِينَ آتَيْنَاهُمُ الْكِتَابِ يَتْلُونَهُ حَقَّ تِلَاوَتِهِ. They recited the haqq of tilawat. But then at another place in Quran, Allah says, فَقْرَؤُوا مَا تَيَسَّرَا. Surah Muzammil. Read as much as you can. There's no obligation. It's not wajib to recite. It's mustahab to recite, but read as much as you can. But there's no third option, by the way. Don't read. Just the same way in taqwa, you either have the best or you get on the path of taqwa, istata'tum. Similarly over here, you read the Quran, haqqa tilawate, the beautiful voice, or at least you go ahead and read as much as you can. There's no third option as far as this is concerned. And last example of this in Surah Hajj is regarding jihad. It says, وَجَاهِدُوا فِي اللَّهِ حَقَّ جِهَادِ. Do jihad in the way of Allah, the way jihad is supposed to be done. Right? The way jihad is supposed to be done. Haqqa jihad. The word haqq is telling you this is the peak of it. But then Allah draws an exception to it. It says, وَأَعِدُّ لَهُمْ مَسْتَطَعْتُمْ. Prepare for jihad as much as possible. Surah Anfal. Because the Surah Anfal talks about the ghanimat of war, it's talking about prepare yourself for war and this battle and this jihad. It doesn't have to be battle outside, but it could be battle within. But you don't have the third option. You only have these two options. Either you do it the best or you do according to your ability, but there's no third option of neglecting it. Salawat biji Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So it is possible that we may not be able to live up to the task, and that is okay. Rasulullah also said regarding his, now this is of course the humbleness of Rasulullah, because if he's saying this, then what is our halat? He said regarding Allah, Ma arafnaka haqqa ma'rifatik. Oh Allah, we did not recognize you the way you deserve to be recognized. The ma'rifat of Allah is not possible for us, people like us. Rasulullah is uttering these words, then of course, where are you and I? So therefore we need to look at, as far as the hukuk of people that are in our surrounding, whether it be our neighbor, whether it be our friends, whether it be our children, whether it be our spouse, whether it be our teacher, anyone who's in our surrounding. In fact, all of those people that Imam Zainul Abidin ﷺ mentions in Risalatul Hukuk, have we paid the dues toward those individuals or not? Either you pay their dues the way it is deserved, or you get on the path of paying their dues, but there's no third option of not paying the dues. There's no third option that you don't fulfill the hukuk that all of these people have. Now, there are things as well which require haqq, such as namaz, such as this masjid of yours. So let's just focus on this salat and masjid before we move on to the aspect of tarbiyat. Can we say that we have paid full respect which the masjid deserves as far as, its well-being and our attachment with this masjid or any masjid? I'm just using this as an example because you could be listening to it somewhere else. The masjid that you subscribe to, not just the YouTube channel, but also physically that you go to, can we say that we have paid full respect due to this masjid and this salat that we offer? If yes, then simple question. Why are masajid empty during wajib salat but full during mustahab salat? There are two salat during the years that are mustahab. Well, they're sunnat, but that's why they're called mustahab right now. Sunnat is something which is done by Rasulullah, but it's not obligatory. During the year, there are two occasions where it's packed. Although the namaz is not even wajib. There's no room. I understand it's Eid, but nonetheless, it's only mustahab. On the contrary, we are the abna and the children of going after mustahabbat. In some places we go after mustahabbat, and not all do this, but they neglect the wajib. And say, well, Ziyarat Arba'in is coming. It's very important. You look at Kamilu Ziyarat, there's so many riwayat from Ma'asumeen regarding Ziyarat Arba'in. Every step you take toward the Ziyarat of Sayyid al-Shuhada gives you the thawab of Hajj and Umrah. Mustahab, Hajj and Umrah. So Moulana, if I can have 70 Hajj and Umrah every time I go to Karbala, why do I need to go for Hajj? Yeah, that's wajib that still remains on your gardan that you still have to fulfill. So we are the abna and the children of looking after mustahabbat, right? Our deen is filled with mustahabbat. There's so many mustahabbat. My question is, if we say we have paid the dues of masjid and salat, then why is it on the occasions of mustahab prayers, it is packed? When it comes to the wajib prayers, we find it to be quite empty. Each of us make a decision that will dedicate a day, one day a week, that will come for either Dhuhr, or will come for Maghrib, or will come for Fajr. Just one day a week. Dedicate. If the entire community dedicates 1 or 2 days during the week, then you'll find that this place will be flourishing on regular prayers. Although, as it is, when people say, you have 5-time prayers, 3-time prayers in your masjid, and they're really astonished. How is that possible? Because in Shia world, it is something which is unheard of. Fajr bhi hoti hai aapke yahan? Wow. That's unheard of. So this is at least, but we don't get too excited because it's a masjid. It has to be filled. It has to be packed as far as the regular and wajibat are concerned. Why? What is the proof of that? What is the dalil behind it? I'll just give you quickly the dalil from Quran and I'll move forward. The one who calls people toward Allah, dhikr of Allah, the one who calls people toward Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Surah Fussilat 33 says, وَمَنْ أَحْسَنُ قَوْلًا مِمَّنْ دَعَا إِلَى اللَّهِ. Masjid, it is the best person from the perspective of Quran, the one who calls people toward Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when you call people toward masjid, when you call people toward salat, it is considered to be وَمَنْ أَحْسَنُ. According to this ayat of Quran, there's no one better than the one who calls people toward masjid as far as the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is concerned. And therefore, when we're sitting here for this majlis-e-azam, this is also a dhikr, is it not? You know the dhikr, hadith of dhikr, زَيِّنُوا مَجَالِسَكُمْ بِذِكْرِ Ali ibn Abi Talib. Embellish your gatherings with the dhikr of Ali. Why? فَإِنَّ ذِكْرَهُ ذِكْرِي وَذِكْرِي ذِكْرُ اللَّهِ. Why? When you do the dhikr of Ali, you do the dhikr of Nabi. When you do the dhikr of Nabi, you do the dhikr of Allah. And dhikr Allah is ibadat. So when you call people toward majlis-e-azam as well, you're calling people toward dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as well. Salawat biji Muhammad wa aliman. Now, the reason why we are emphasizing on this is because this is part of the tarbiyat that we want to leave behind. Do you not want your children to be carrying on as far as the majalis are concerned? Are you not concerned that we're not here forever? Someone else has to take lead and they will be responsible for organizing the majalis? Yes, it'll happen eventually. You say, well, back home it was a different story. It was the entire community was like that. Here, that's not the case. It's very difficult for kids to even come and bring kids to majalis. It's only a few dedicated families who are, really make the effort of bringing their kids to majalis so they can sit. And bringing is one thing and keeping them to listen to it is another thing. So how do you go ahead and do the same thing when it comes to even bringing for salat or even to masajid for regular basis? So a few things that you can use, ways to attract children toward salat. Now there are ways to attract children toward majalis is easy sometimes, but ways for people to attract kids towards salat, these are the few things. For example, get a picture framed while they're praying and hang it on the wall. You saw your kid praying, get a picture, frame it and put it on the wall. This will be what? Serves as a reminder that look, you were praying once and I took a picture of you. That reminder sits on the unconscious and then the person goes ahead and performs it. Respected elders of the community and the professionals should make an effort to come join the masajid as far as the majalis are concerned, as far as the salat, daily salat is concerned, so that it shows and highlights for those who are ambitious that I want to become this, I want to become that, I won't have time for majlis and matam and all that stuff. No, when he sees or she sees the professionals who are highly qualified in their fields are paying efforts. Why? Because they too need this azah. Then it gives what? Automatically includes this sense of importance in the hearts of young ones. Let them be part of the program by reciting the adhan and the iqama and the recitation of hadith kisa, recitation of Quran, recitation of dua tawassul as it was recited tonight, matam and noha and all that stuff, so that they feel that there's a sense of responsibility on their shoulders as well. They have to be there to go ahead and conduct this program and not just to be dragged by the parents all the time. So that will also give them something. Respect the children while they are in masjid. Read their written work, announce their accomplishments in between your programs so they feel importance. And these are the things which gives kids especially what? Importance, a sense of importance, right? Right away they feel that someone is appreciating what they have done, what they have accomplished, and now they want others to. Fun. I remember once I was reciting in Dara Jafariya, and this child came up to me and he asked me a question before the majlis. I answered the question and I said, it's a very good question, by the way. And sometimes you say it's a very good question just so that you can buy time to go ahead and think about the answer. And you say, well, it's a very good question, so you give tawqiran lil hikmah. You want to appreciate and give integrity to the question. But that was genuinely a good question. So I said, mashallah, it's a very good question. Not that I'm throwing anything down, that you're so young and you're able to ask such an important question. So the child said, so I told him that I'll mention the question from the mimbar. You know what he requested? He said, mention my name as well. Why? Because if you just mention the question, nobody will know who asked. Like you don't know who that kid was. But if you mention my name, then my peers will be proud of me as well. Wow, you asked that question? Moulana mentioned it from the mimbar. So that sort of appreciation is okay when children are young, and there's nothing wrong naming as well. So these are some concrete steps as far as the tarbiyat of awlad is concerned. Quran in Surah Talaq actually talks about this concept of, this world is being a place of nurturing, place of tarbiyat gah. Allah has created this world as a tarbiyat gah for individuals. And when Allah sent mankind, He made sure that the guide to provide that tarbiyat was there before people arrived. Right? As you go for ziyarat or hajj, you want the guide to be waiting for you over there. Because the guide is not there, then you're lost. You expect someone to be guiding you, be there because you're going to this new place. Guess what? When Allah sent mankind to this world, the guide in the form of Hadrat Adam ﷺ, Abul Bashar, was present in order to go ahead and remove any sort of ambiguities and the doubts that may arise. So the guide, tarbiyat kunande, the one who would provide this tarbiyat and this bed for tarbiyat gah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had already done so. One might say, I don't have kids, so does that really matter to me? Do I really need to pay attention to as far as the tarbiyat of awlad is concerned? Similar question could be raised about someone who listens to the fadail of taking care of your parents when they're not alive. You say, well, my parents are dead. Do I really need to pay attention now to the hukuk of walidain? Because they're no longer alive. Guess what? Rasulullah said, Sayyidul Abrar, man barra waliday ba'da fawtihima. The Sayyid and the master of righteous is the one who takes care of his parents after their death. Anyone can take care of them when they're alive, but to be able to take care of them after their death is someone who's Sayyidul Abrar. Guess what? When it comes to children as well, even if you don't have him, this country at least makes you pay for the education even if you don't have the kids. Right? Your taxes, you have to pay the taxes. And those taxes are used towards education, whether or not you have kids or no. So this is where, as far as tarbiyat is concerned, no, all of us are in it. I'll just quote a couple of riwayat in this reference before I bring you towards close. First riwayat is from Kitab, a very important book called Mustadrak. There's a hadith from our Prophet Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam who says, he said, "Tuhsin ismuhu wa adabuhu," or "Tuhassin ismuhu wa adabuhu." The right of your child is that you give them good name and you give them good adab and saliqa and the way of living. That is important. And then he says, وَتَضَعَهُ مَوْضِعًا حَسَنًا. And of course, provide them a place which is a good place, according to your ability, so that they don't feel that, they're neglected or their maqam is somewhat low in this world. No, make them feel good, so that their feeling good will never lower their self-esteem. Second place, he said, min haqqil waladi ala walidayhi thalatha. As far as the hukuk of the children are concerned, toward the parents, there are three things that are mentioned. Number one, yuhassin ismahu, give him a good name. So this thing is repeated in this riwayat as well. Yu'allimuhu al-kitaba, teach him the book. Wa yuzavvijuhu idha balagh, and get him married when he is old enough. I remember many years ago when I first started reciting majalis back in 2006, 2007, I was reciting a majlis in Baitul Qaim, and my late father was sitting and listening to the majlis as well. He was present in the majlis, and I recited this hadith, min haqqil walade or min haqqil walide ala waladihi. These are the three things that are obligatory on parents, on father towards the kids. And I was not married at that time. So yuhassin ismahu, give him a good name, teach him the Quran, and get him married when he's old. So Murad Sahib was sitting over there and he said to him, you did two things. You gave him a good name, you taught him Quran, now the third one is still awaits. Of course, this was done after the majlis was over. They made a joke out of it, and it was good memories, of course. So this is upon everyone. He said, well, I have spent all of this money to send my kids to the best of the universities. Now you want me to do tarbiyat of them as well? What are they doing as far as the tarbiyat is concerned? Why am I spending all this money? No, money is good that you spend on them. Everyone will do that. Every parent does that. But the concept of providing along with ta'aleem is this tarbiyat. Without this tarbiyat, this ta'aleem sometimes could be, used wrongfully. This ta'aleem can actually make them arrogant. And I'm not just talking about science and technology and mathematics and, ulum ghayr dini. Even ulum dini can make you arrogant if proper tarbiyat is not done. You can go through your head that I am the alim now, I am the scholar now, I know this stuff. Who are you? So this is where ta'aleem alongside with tarbiyat is something which is the perfect marriage. So 4 things before I conclude. And this is something which I wanted to discuss in last night's workshop that we had. And of course, we curtailed the program, but I thought it would be important. So I'll go ahead and share these 4 things for tonight. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. With this day and age that we live in this social media, children as young as 4 or 5 years old, 6 years old, who now have access to these gadgets and online gaming and whatnot, they are, posed to various types of threats. And someone wrote a very beautiful article on it on a website called soundvision.com, runs by brothers of Ahl Sunnah. And it talks about 4 C's, 4C. and categorize these 4 C's as to what are the risks that are involved as far as the kids are concerned. Now someone would say, well, my kids are not that young anymore. Well, your grandchildren. Now you tell your kids to be watchful over their kids. What are these 4 C's? I'll go through it quickly. Number 1, first C stands for content risk. That when these kids, they are accessing these games and they're playing these games, inappropriate and malicious content through games and the pop-up ads or live stream platforms, which includes sometimes, inappropriate for their age content, images that display sometimes sexuality, sometimes violence, sometimes cruelty, uncomfortable and disturbing images. When they pop up in front of their vulnerable minds, we're just minding their own business, playing this harmless game, and then right away this pop-up comes. And then sometime, in order to remove this, you end up clicking on it. Then it takes you to another place. This is the content risk that you're taking when you provide this unfiltered access to your kids when they are playing these video games or accessing websites or online contents. This is first C, which is content risk. Again, there's much detail to it. I don't have time to go in the details. Number 2, contact risk. Second C is the contact risk. There are several popular gaming apps that use built-in chat feature. Many of them have a speech chat feature. Some are just, texting chat feature. And kids know this. If you don't know this, ask your 6-year-old, ask your 5-year-old. They'll tell you and they'll fill you in with everything that is out there because they're playing these games. And if you're old enough, then of course still it's bad because you're chatting to random people. But when you're that young, this is where it's important that this contact that they're having, these built-in features which sometimes are so harmless, kids think this is part of the game, children can come into contact with these pedophiles, those adults who prey on children, begin and act in ways that could hurt others. Cyberbullying and all those things come into play as far as that is concerned. That's number 2. Third C is conduct risk. The conduct of this child who's already seen the content and who's already come into contact. The third C is the conduct risk. Online gaming and screen addiction can spur a multitude of variety of personality-related problems in this young mind. It could create the stimulation, emotionality, anxiety, mental health-related problems, sensitivity to interpersonal relationship, hostility, paranoia, and other features that now people have done so much research about it that could be part of the upbringing. And this child who's now subtly growing, you think everything is fine, we're sending him to school and everything is fine. Now because of these games, this mindset is developing. Conduct of this child, you'll see the behavior changes. How sometimes they're so irritated, they'll shout, they'll yell, they'll say words which you like, where did you learn this? They'll show attitude in certain places, certain times with you at home. Okay, ghar mein kar lo, koi masla nahi hai, bahar. Outside they'll show the attitude to you as well. How is that attitude changing? Due to the conduct risk that is out there. Number 4, contract risk. So you have the content risk, you had the contact risk, then you have the conduct risk, and you have now the contract risk. Almost all apps require agreeing to certain terms and conditions and pose privacy-related threats, which can do what? Which you can agree to something not knowing because it's written in such fine prints. You can agree to something which will give access through these games for hackers to get inside your home network, access your files, access your data, access the private stuff, and they can able to, for example, do fraudulent activities with that. Yes, it's quite possible. Just this game which is connected to the internet, this wireless piece of device that they're using, because they are agreeing to certain terms and conditions, they're allowing unfiltered access to people outside who are looking for this, for them to then gain access to your main network and get inside of it. So these are the 4 C's. Just a reminder, inshallah, next time when I have the opportunity, we'll discuss the solutions. How are we able to address? Because there's never a good thing to just state the problems. Ye problem hai, ye problem hai, ye problem hai. What is the solution to this problem? That is also very important. Salawat vejiye Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. And I think Muharram and Safar could be used to give that sort of break from certain things like this. You can't remove all of these things altogether. But you can do one thing which is called this dopamine detox. Inshallah, we'll talk about that another time. To give a break from certain things that they are become normal, routine life. Especially bringing kids to majalis. Why? Because when they hear the tazkirah and the shahadat of someone as young as their age, in this case, when they hear the shahadat of a 4-year-old daughter of Sayyid al-Shuhada, they feel the pain in their heart. They can understand, and then they have questions. I don't know if your kids have ever asked you questions. When you're going back home, driving back home, when they've heard the majalis and the marsiya, and they've heard the masaib in their own language, the heart-wrenching masaib of Ahlul Bayt, they question, how is it possible that a 4-year-old was struck with taziyana? How is it possible that a 4-year-old was slapped violently? How is it possible to snatch the earrings from the ears? How is it possible to go ahead and take away the rida and the chadar of someone who observes hijab? Were they not Muslims? Why were they doing these things? Yes, amongst them is the daughter of Imam Husayn by the name Sakina, bint al-Husayn. This little girl has seen too much for her young age. You start all the difficulties of the travel from Medina to Makkah and from Makkah to Karbala. And then her role as far as al-Atash is concerned, asking Abul Fadl Abbas to go get water. And when the alam of Hazrat Abbas comes, Imam Hussain brings the alam of Hazrat Abbas. And this little girl, she gets excited that my uncle, who's Ba Wafa, who always fulfills the vows, he's brought the water, but only to see her father is bringing the alam. She says, oh Baba, where's my Chacha Abbas? Imam Hussain says Abbas couldn't make it and he slept near the banks of Furat. The little girl threw the kuza away and the cup away, saying that I don't need water if I can only have my uncle back. I will never question water again if I can only have my uncle back. Ajrukum Allah, may Allah give you no grief, no sorrow except the grief of Ahlul Bayt. This little girl continues her journey. When she sees the atrocities on the day of Ashur, when the tents were being burned while the children were still in the tents. Ravi says, I saw the women would go from one tent to another, from second to third, as the tents were being... The atrocities are no less so when she sees that on the day of Ashur, not only that her father was martyred as he was leaving, Sakina said, oh Baba, taslamta, oh Baba, have you given up, or have you come down to the fact now you give up as far as this life is concerned? Imam responded, how can I not go taslim and give up to this world while I have no muhami, no one to go ahead and back me up? This girl asked, Baba, is it possible for me to sleep with you one time on your chest? As she was always used to doing so, Imam Hussain fulfills this demand. He puts her on his shoulder, they sleep for a while. Bibi Zainab wakes them up. Oh Hussain, you have a mission to accomplish. Imam Hussain gives Zainab little Sakina back, saying, oh Sakina, this is it. From now on, you and your brother will switch places. Ali Asghar will sleep on my chest. And you will sleep with your mother, and don't bother her. If she wants to put you to sleep at a certain place, don't say, I want to sleep with Baba. And then on the day of Ashur, after Sham-e-Ghariba, she's searching as the kids were spread like the beads of the tasbih. She was looking around in the Ghayaban. In the Bayaban, she's looking, oh Baba, come for the help of Sakina. Janab Zainab, when she sees Sakina is not there, she goes around looking in this jungle for Sakina. She finds her to be laying on top of a body without a head. She says, oh beta, how did you know this is the body of your father Hussain? She said, I was calling Baba in the darkness as soon as the two hands raised. Similar is the case when they came to the Zindan. This young girl is now weeping. She sees a dream and she sees her father in the dream. She wakes up crying. Zainab says, what happened? She said, I saw my Baba. He's here with Yazid. Sakina, your Baba is not here. No, I've seen him. He's here with Yazid. I want to see my Baba. I want to meet with my Baba. Imam Zainul Abidin comforts her. Oh, Behen Sakina, your Baba is not here. She said, but I've seen in my dream. They tell the guards, Yazid orders to send the head of Hussain. They bring the head of Imam Hussain covered in a tasht with a veil over it. She said, I'm not hungry. I need my Baba. They remove the veil. She sees the head of Imam Hussain. She takes hold of the head of Imam Hussain. She kisses the lips of Hussain. Oh Baba, what has happened to you? As she was weeping and crying, the entire Zindan was crying along with her. While everybody was busy crying, in no moment this girl passed away. As soon as she passed away, Zainab called, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Ya Hussain.
ये बच्ची कौन है? ये तो सकीना लगती है और छाई है जिस पर बेबसी, ये तो सकीना लगती है और आती है मक्तल की तरफ। देखा है क्यों सोए नजफ, और क्या इसका दादा है अली, क्या इसका दादा है अली, ये तो सकीना लगती है। आती है क्यों रोती हुई, सदमों से जाँ खोती हुई, पढ़ती हुई ना दे अली, पढ़ती हुई ना दे अली, ये तो सकीना लगती है। या हुसैन, या हुसैन, या हुसैन, या हुसैन, या हुसैन, या हुसैन।
تم سے بچھڑ کے ماں کا مشکل بہت ہے جینا، اور ماں کو بھی ساتھ لے لو، رک جاؤ اے سکینہ، رک جاؤ اے سکینہ، رک جاؤ اے سکینہ۔ ارے ہر سمت ہے اندھیرا، ہر راہ پر خطر ہے، ہر سمت ہے اندھیرا، ہر راہ پر خطر ہے، اور ہر راہ پر خطر ہے، ہر سمت ہے اندھیرا، دشمن ہے چار جانب، دل میں چھپائے کینہ، رک جاؤ اے سکینہ، رک جاؤ اے سکینہ، رک جاؤ اے سکینہ۔ اور کھا کھا کے تم تماچے گھبرا گئی ہو شاید، کھا کھا کے تم تماچے گھبرا گئی ہو شاید، گھبرا گئی ہو شاید، کھا کھا کے تم تماچے، تا شام سیکھ جاؤ گی آنسوؤں کو پینا، رک جاؤ اے سکینہ، رک جاؤ اے سکینہ، رک جاؤ اے سکینہ۔ اموں کو جان مادر اس طرح مت صدا دو، اموں کو جان مادر اس طرح مت صدا دو، اور اس طرح مت صدا دو، اموں کو جان مادر، عباس کی جبیں پر آ جائے گا پسینہ، رک جاؤ اے سکینہ، رک جاؤ اے سکینہ، رک جاؤ اے سکینہ۔ رخ پر لہو جمع ہے، کانوں سے خون ہے جاری، لہو جمع ہے، کانوں سے خون ہے جاری، اور کانوں سے خون ہے جاری، رخ پر لہو جمع ہے، بیٹا تڑپ اٹھے گا جان شہ مدینہ، رک جاؤ اے سکینہ، رک جاؤ اے سکینہ، رک جاؤ اے سکینہ۔ اور ہے قید شام کی آپ تنہائیاں مقدر، ہے قید شام کی آپ تنہائیاں مقدر، اور تنہائیاں مقدر، ہے قید شام کی آپ بی بی نصیب میں اب تیرے نہیں مدینہ، رک جاؤ اے سکینہ، رک جاؤ اے سکینہ، رک جاؤ اے سکینہ۔ یہ بے کسی یہ غربت، یہ دشت نینوا کا، یہ بے کسی یہ غربت، بعد یہ دشت نینوا کا یہ بے کسی غربت ڈوبا کہاں ہے آ کر تقدیر کا سفینہ رک جاؤ اے سکینہ رک جاؤ اے سکینہ رک جاؤ اے سکینہ
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله السلام عليك يا ابن رسول الله السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته السلام عليك يا غريب الغرباء السلام عليك يا معين الضعفاء والفقراء السلام عليك يا شمس الشموس السلام عليك أنيس النفوس أيها المدفون بأرض طوز روحي وجسمي لك الفداء السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته السلام عليك يا صاحب العصر والزمان الأمان 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 السلام عليك يا شريك القرآن السلام عليك إمام هذا عجل الله تعالى فرجك وسهل مخرجك وظهورك وجعلنا من أنصارك وأعوانك السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته